who transcended section and whose unselfish loyalty to the cause helped the states achieve independence in 1783. He was not only the most famous man in America, he was the most famous American in the world. The executive office was designed with him in mind. Benjamin Franklin said during the Philadelphia Convention in 1787 that the first man put at the helm will be a good one. Nobody knows what sort may come afterwards. Washington's first cabinet contained some of the best minds in the states: Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, Henry Knox, and Edmund Randolph. Yet Washington spent much of his first term feeling his way around the newly established office. Some of the executive powers were vague. What did the advice and consent of the Senate actually mean? At first, Washington thought that he had to meet the Senate in person to discuss treaties, but that visit ended in disaster, and Washington never again set foot on the Senate floor. How was the veto power to be used? Washington thought that it should only be used to nullify unconstitutional legislation. He also believed that, once signed, every bill had to be accepted and enforced in toto. The president serves a 4-year term, but should he serve until he dies, or can the president retire? Washington chose the latter path and established the 2-term precedent that every subsequent president followed until Franklin Roosevelt in 1940. A Republican at heart. Washington was restrained by the constant tug of republicanism. He believed in a strong central government, but he also understood that the American public would not support an American king, nor did he want to be that man. He sought to balance executive energy with liberty. Washington also knew that both the framers of the Constitution and the ratifiers in the state conventions feared potential abuse from the executive branch above all else. As a result, during his first term, Washington cautiously implemented executive authority. That changed in 1793. The French Revolution had a lot to do with Washington's policy shifts. By 1793, the revolution had turned violent. In January of that year, Louis XVI was beheaded, and the French government was quickly embroiled in war with all of Europe. This presented a problem for American diplomacy. United States treaty obligations to the French government, due to French support for the American War for Independence, complicated matters. French wars became an American problem. Thomas Paine, the author of Common Sense and the American Crisis, wound up in revolutionary France and eventually became a bitter critic of the Washington administration, in part because he blamed it for leaving him to rot in a French prison. Secretary of State Jefferson was an early supporter of the Revolution and even helped the hero of two worlds, the Marquis de Lafayette, craft a French Declaration of Rights. Jefferson thought the United States should uphold its treaty obligations and support the new government in France. Hamilton disagreed and urged Washington to pursue an independent course. Washington sided with Hamilton, but because the Constitution placed all war-making powers in the legislative branch and treaties had to have the advice and consent of the Senate, the Congress had to be consulted. The President was head of state and could receive ambassadors, but he could not act unilaterally. Presidential Proclamation. Washington sidestepped the problem and the Constitution by issuing what has been called the Proclamation of Neutrality in May 1793. He did not use the word neutrality in the document, but that was the intent. The United States, Washington decreed, would adopt a friendly and impartial policy in regard to all belligerent powers in Europe. Any American caught serving a foreign government would be hung out to dry by the Washington administration. The message was clear. Washington was not going to become involved.